welcome to We Act Radio Special Edition. This is a report on the crisis happening in Nigeria. I'm joined by my co-host here at We Act Radio.
Oh, Melissa Byrne, Senior Advisor.
And also Omola Adele Osho.
Yes, thank you.
Who has a first-hand view on the crisis going on. And we here at We Act Radio, independent media, wants to get the grounds view on the issues that's taking place. And could you enlighten our audience to, in your opinion, what is going on there and actions that have been taking place here?
Sure. So I'll just start short, immediate. Well, on April 14th of this year, over 200 girls were taken from their boarding school in Nigeria in the middle of the night. They were kidnapped, escorted out of their dormitory by military men, or who they thought were military men dressed in military gear, and escorted through the bush in northern region of Nigeria for over an hour, where they were abruptly put on buses or lorries that were waiting in the bush to take them away. So they were kidnapped. Over 50 of them escaped in various ways. Some of them jumped out of those trucks when one of the drivers of the trucks actually said to help. When one of the drivers actually said, you know what, as I'm turning, grab onto a branch and basically jump. He knew what was waiting for these girls. Some of them, we have reports that at least 3 of them have been killed or have died for whatever reasons. There's no confirmation on who they are. But as of now, the Nigerian government is working to get them home. Unfortunately, the Nigerian government's response has been very delayed. There were reports that, first of all, the girls weren't missing, and then they were forced to admit that, yes, the girls are missing, but then there have been contradictory information that, have they been rescued? How many of them have been rescued? How many have been abducted? They have not all the information about which one of the girls were abducted, what are their names, so on and so forth. So there's a lot of things that were done wrong when it comes to the response of the Nigerian government in what is going to be a month later of these girls' abductions. And so right now we are basically waiting with the support of the United States and some other governments on tracking where these girls currently are. But also they were taken by a terrorist group in Nigeria called Boko Haram that has pretty much been terrorizing the northeast region of Nigeria since 2002. They've killed thousands of people. They have said through videos that they are going to sell these girls or they're going to kill them, but also they're in a region that has very low to no border security with Cameroon, Chad, and Niger. So right now it's a race against time. Like I said, on Wednesday is going to be 30 days since girls have been kidnapped, and we have no response as to where they are or what's going on.
I'm interested in learning more about and talking more about Boko Haram. Can you explain a little bit of their origin? I understand that they have been linked to Al-Qaeda and that they aren't representative of the people from Borno.
Correct. Well, there's speculation as to the real origins of Boko Haram. Boko Haram, as what we know of today, was founded around 2002 by Muhammad Yusuf, who was their leader until 2009. He was killed in 2009. The links to Al-Qaeda, I can't really speak to, but what I do know is that they have used some of the same tactics as Al-Qaeda has in other regions of the world. And so that I see some similarity. The legitimacy is whether or not they were fully funded by Al-Qaeda, I can't speak to it. But what we've heard through reports from the Guardian, for example, they have a reporter who's been on this from the beginning. And she said she spoke to one of the Nigerian military men in Borno State who said that he's not under the illusion that the members of Boko Haram have not infiltrated the Nigerian government and the Nigerian military. So we know that some of maybe the ammunition they're using, which is Nigerian government ammunition, or stolen, because they've always attacked the artillery. That's one way. They're members, possibly members of our government, who might be funding them. We don't know. So what we do know is since 2002, they have recruited young boys who, either were not able to get an education because there's a high rate of unemployment in Nigeria. They have been recruited because their families were either attacked by the Nigerian government itself at a certain point in time. So there's a lot of reasons why Boko Haram is who they are today. Obviously, they're being funded by someone, and someone with a lot of resources. I just can't speak to whom it is, if it's Al-Qaeda or if it is somebody or people from our Nigerian government. I can't.
Well, can we speak to, for our listener audience who are not aware, on the pushback in terms of the establishment government in Nigeria from the First Lady's comments regarding this, and of course the President's comments and his position in regards to the timeliness of the economic forum that was taking place just this last week. That was co-chaired by one of the leading feminists in Africa.
Yeah, and I think that it's unfortunate that and as Nigeria, I am a Nigerian. I was born and raised in Lagos, Nigeria. I went to education school in Nigeria until I came to the United States for my undergraduate degree. And it's unfortunate that the Nigerian people have been living for decades with a very, very inefficient government system. We have a very corrupt government system. On April 15th, the president, who was seen dancing at a rally, had been informed about what happened with these kids. Nothing was said. And then, fast forward 2 weeks later, his wife begins to railroad the women who are trying to organize the country around dealing with this issue, but also support the parents of these girls that have been taken. She summons them up to Abuja, has a press conference where she's crying on television. I'm sorry, people seeing it on YouTube, and then abruptly has them arrested. So first of all, she's not a government employee. She doesn't have that power. So it's imagine Michelle Obama asking, just act as if Nigeria is their own personal piggy playpen. Right. And that's how they treat it.
One thing I have found interesting with what you're saying is that on the ground in Nigeria, people started organizing immediately to bring back those girls, to bring back our girls. Whereas what we're seeing in the U.S. media is all of a sudden all this outrage because people are seeing Bring Back Our Girls trending on Twitter and making it seem like the Nigerians need Americans to go save them, when actually they have agency and they have a tradition of organizing.
Correct.
So I was wondering if you wanted to comment on how we're now all outraged because we want those girls to come home. Those girls belong in their beds at home with their parents recovering, and that's important. But at the same time, it's important not to minimize the role of Nigerians in their own self-determination.
Correct. I agree that first and foremost, Nigerians have to be responsible and accountable. We've all been asleep at the wheel, which is what has led us to this situation. We own part of the blame just as much as our federal government, because one, we did not hold them accountable for the lack of security, the lack of enforcement of law, the lack of focus on education and safety for women and girls, especially in this region. But furthermore, I think that the timing of the trending of the hashtag Bring Back Our Girls has worked to an advantage in that it coincided with just the World Economic Summit. Mm-hmm. Had that not been happening, the Nigerian government would have stayed silent. And I think that having an international spotlight on them really forced the Nigerian government, especially President Goodluck Jonathan, to really start to accept help. The phones were ringing from all over the world, and he could not stay silent anymore. And furthermore, Nigerians were not willing to stay silent anymore. We were not willing to stay silent over here, even though we're not in Nigeria, but there's a huge African population, Nigerian population in all over America. And so it was us saying, you know what, this is enough. Our girls matter. Girls are the foundation of every society. And if we're going to sit back silently and have these men kidnap our girls and do whatever they want with these girls, I mean, what are we saying to the next generation of girls coming up? That, especially when they're black girls, you don't matter? your value is not worth anything. And I think that just the timing of it with the World Economic Forum was just the perfect place to be able to have us be at the tipping point of probably great change in Nigeria. But it has to be change that is pushed for and is driven by Nigerians.
Can you tell us about some of the pushback that's been happening? Because a lot of people has been voicing their opinions as concerning that, is this another, anti-Muslim media bomb? Is this, propaganda to destabilize Nigeria? And footnote is that we're all aware of the corruption in Nigeria, but that's because of the free flow of money and oil in Nigeria and the society, and a lot of that America has to be held partially responsible for as well, as a footnote. But there's a lot of talk on just the mere meaning, the English translation of Boko Haram. Can you speak to that in terms of those people who are suspicious, I should say, of the timeliness and this issue itself?
I think that, there is some validity to those who are skeptical about, the sort of the hero complex of, a lot of nations all of a sudden wanting to help Nigeria.
Yeah, because it sounds a lot like Tarzan.
Yeah. But I also think that one thing is I am willing to ask for help for these girls to be brought back safely, first and foremost. Now, having these countries staying in Nigeria, that's up to us. That's up to our federal government leaders if they choose to stay partnership or keep them in the country. And we as Nigerians have to be louder in saying, you know what, thank you for your help. Now it's time for you to go home. I don't foresee that, the overtaking of Nigeria's resources, because we're a very rich country when it comes to oil and other resources. But I think that ultimately, if we do end up in a situation where there are foreign national companies taking over our resources, we are allowing that to happen. And the corruption of our leadership has supported that.
Right. And it also has to do with U.S. aid. You have Senator John McCain calling for ground troops being sent into Nigeria. You had NAACP leader in Detroit calling for the U.S. to send drones into Nigeria. And I love my country, but our track record of military engagement tends to create more problems.
Sure. And I think that military engagement in that region is going to be very highly volatile. One, history has shown that the United States going into any other country where you're not familiar with the lay of the land is a disaster. You can look at Vietnam. You can look at other wars.
Iraq.
You can look at other wars where you're not on the ground. You really don't have that intelligence on the ground. Just a few days ago, Boko Haram bombed 2 bridges that connect Nigeria to Cameroon. They destroyed those bridges. They know what they're doing. They've laid landmines. That's why the Nigerian government hasn't been able to go further into the bush where they are, because those people have been living there and they have been setting up booby traps for years. So you're dealing with, and unfortunately our satellite imagery is not up to date, another reason where the money should have gone but is missing. But you can't say that you're just going to use a drone to go into that region. It is a heavily dense area and you risk the lives of these girls. Now, working in tandem with Cameroon, Niger, and Chad, that might be an opportunity around the border, because how are they easily getting in and out of the country? That's one thing we need to consider. So there has to be some way of dealing with border security. But I think that ultimately you need the support of the Nigerian military force to be able to go in there. So it can't be boots on the ground for Americans or foreign nationals. They really, really, really raise the risk of killing these girls if they do that.
But isn't it true that the Nigerian government has been, the Nigerian military has been sufficient enough that it has been outsourced to other countries as peacekeeping
Correct.
missions?
We are the largest portion of we're largest constituency of the ECOMOG, where we go to other countries. We've done it to Rwanda. We've done it in other places where we've supported them and helped them. But I think you also have to understand that a lot of those other militia that have been dealt with are not necessarily as funded as Boko Haram has been. Mm-hmm. So they're dealing with a whole different kind of people that have a different skill set. And let's not also be fooled. The gentleman you see in these videos, that is not the head of Boko Haram. That man, he might be the spokesperson, but these people are intelligent people. They are people who are well educated. They are people who have multiple degrees. Their leadership, that's what I'm talking about.
Right.
So
they knew how to draw the U.S. in.
Exactly. And so we're not dealing with just random militia here. We're dealing with some people who have strategy and have a reason and a purpose. Their purpose was, one, to deal with the issue of Western influence in northern Nigeria, but also I think where they may have overreached is thinking that taking over 300 girls would go unnoticed. That, to me, was a turning point. And here is an opportunity for us to reclaim the North from Boko Haram, but for us to reclaim our country from these corrupt individuals that may be supporting Boko Haram in one way or the other.
And what kind of support did this group have in Nigeria?
Well, I think that, the northern part of Nigeria is a very, education for girls is less than 5% of the female population in the north are educated. And also it's a hugely agricultural region. So, and it's a largely poor region. So I think that when you're talking about people who are willing to support you in a way where your own government isn't being able to support you, it's a no-brainer as to why you would have recruitment increase. When it comes to boys being kicked out of their families, those are easy targets. Those are people that are looking for a family. Think of them as a gang. Why do people join gangs in America? They're looking for a family. They're looking for people who take care of them, who believe in them. Boko Haram provided them that. And on top of that, they were teaching them their brand of what they call, their brand of Islam. Well, the Muslim community have said, you know what? They're not part of us. They're on the left. They're extremists. And so I think that, the circumstances, the poverty, the lack of security, the lack of attention by our federal government has created an environment that made it more conducive for active recruitment and engagement in Boko Haram by these people who are susceptible to that.
So if part of dealing with this isn't, I think, like with most problems, it's not just dealing with there's a militia.
Correct.
It's dealing that there is structural inequality.
Yes.
And that if you look at every hot spot in the world, there is structural inequality and poverty that's tied in. And
very high unemployment. In Nigeria alone, the average unemployment rate for those who are under 35 is 75%. We're dealing with 75%. I have friends who've gone to college who have 2 degrees who can't get a job. So when you're dealing with that kind of a setting, you make it very right for people to be able to say, you know what, I need to do something. And if these people are going to give me a way to, however misguided it can be, well, why not try that? And then, of course, that's how cults get built, and that's how people get recruited into gangs and so on and so forth. So, think of it in that way, just to try to ground it for the American audience. It's, they're not just extremists. They're giving people something the federal government or the Nigerian government has not been able to create or provide for them. And so they want to survive, they want to live, even if it means taking orders from these crazy people.
Now, Omolola, you're here because of an action that took place at the Nigerian embassy last week. And the motto here, We Act Radio, is do something. And we want to thank you for your do somethingness. But tell us about that action that took place and subsequent actions that people could be taking to support this issue.
So on Tuesday, last Tuesday, which was May 6th, I pretty much was fed up of, one, being a Nigerian, being here and not being able to do something. And I was fed up of the same old story of us just willing to sit back and just let anything happen to our citizens. I heard about the incidents the day after it happened in Thailand. I came back to the United States. There was nothing on the air. I searched online. There was nothing being said other than one newspaper online, The Guardian. They were the only ones reporting on it because they had people there in Nigeria and they had been getting ready for the World Economic Summit. And so I pretty much woke up frustrated and said, you know what, enough is enough. I can still do something with my voice. I can still do something because the Nigerian embassy is here. So we have representation of our federal government here. And so pretty much put out a call on Facebook and asked people to join me in front of the Nigerian embassy last week, Tuesday. And people did. I was amazed at how many people came. But really what we were asking for is
hundreds of people.
Hundreds of people. We had
Washington Post said 60.
I know. We actually had over 300 people because we made over 200 T-shirts, and they were gone within the first 30 minutes. And so I was so happy to see it wasn't just Nigerians, it was Ghanaians, it was Jamaicans, it was Americans of all works, but more importantly, it was mothers who were there. There were mothers of all colors and shades who cared about these babies.
White mothers there.
White mothers there who care about children. Because I think while we are thinking of Boko Haram, let's not forget the main reason why we're focusing and why we're screaming louder. It is about these girls. It's about the future leaders of Nigeria. It's about the future leaders of their region who potentially could be having their dreams stolen. And so we said no more. Enough is enough. The Nigerian government has to do something. And what we're asking and what we're going to keep asking, because we're having another rally on Wednesday back at the Nigerian embassy.
And what time is that?
That's from 10:30 to 1.
Where is the embassy?
The Embassy of Nigeria is at 3519 International Court. That's Northwest. And there's a whole bunch of embassies there. It's at the cul-de-sac. So it's 3519 International
Is it
Court.
up near Van Ness?
Yes. It is Van Ness UDC Metro Station. If anyone is interested to join us, and we encourage everyone to come.
Do something.
And we are saying that, you know what? While people may be giving the hashtag activism some flack, but it is the voices of these individuals who are showing up all around the world that are putting pressure on the Nigerian government in Nigeria. Every embassy, every TV person who's reporting on this, it's making sure that this does not disappear from the news. But what we're asking for is one, we're asking for the safe return of the girls. But furthermore, what are we bringing them back to? Are we bringing them back to a safe place? Are we going to help relocate their families? Are we going to help provide the supportive services they will need to deal with the trauma they faced, like counseling, possibly a witness protection program? And then furthermore, dealing with the issue of border control. Nigeria has to do more to secure Nigeria has to do more to protect its citizenry. That is the first and foremost cause of any government.
And one thing what you said about witness protection I want to add on to is that for a while there were people tweeting the names of the girls.
Yes.
And it's really important that
we stop.
Yeah. They're victims. They didn't consent. We would never in our media, if a young woman was raped, you would never put her name.
Correct.
Mm-hmm. And that they deserve the exact same respect.
Correct.
And their families can be victimized and offered for ransom. It's
exactly.
super important. We don't use their names, and everybody should delete that off your Twitter or your Facebook.
And the reason being, Nigeria, the northern portion of Nigeria, besides what the reasons you've given, Nigeria is, it's a heavily Muslim society. And the concept of shame lives on beyond just this incident. So when people tweeting their names, people asking for their pictures, you're not protected. First of all, remember, these girls are still minors. They're under 18 years old. So we are asking for protection of the girls, protection of their future, because this lives on the internet. Imagine if someone comes over to the United States and wants to get a job, and then you're finding all this stuff about yourself all over the internet. It's being re-victimized, and that's not fair. But furthermore, they could still be in harm.
Exactly.
Boko Haram could come after them, could come after their family. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. These people have access to the internet. So this list that has been publicized, they probably have a copy of it. So we just ask and implore, we ask everybody to please stop posting, stop retweeting, stop copying, stop asking for their names, and give them the privacy and the decency that they deserve.
The hashtag that should be used is Bring Back Our Girls.
Bring back our girls. That's what we're asking everybody to use. Bring back our girls.
Also, one other thing to emphasize, since it has been, we also want to make sure this isn't framed as Boko Haram representing the Muslim community.
No.
They are very much the fringe. Just like in the U.S., we have our fringe people that do not represent what we do.
Correct.
Shout out to Clive and Bundy out in Nevada.
And the Muslim community have condemned their act.
They've been speaking out, and so I think that these are like aligned. We have to make sure that in our outrage, we don't fuel unjust outrage in other areas.
Because in America, there is a huge anti-Muslim sentiment because of what has happened since September 9th. September 11th. September 9th is my birthday. I apologize. September 11th. And I want to be very clear. This is not an Islam issue. This is not an Islam issue. I want to repeat that. This is not an Islam issue. This is a human rights issue.
Exactly.
It is about girls that were missing. It is about a Nigerian government that has the inability to secure its citizens. It's about the Nigeria government's inability to make sure that anyone can have a safe educational environment. And ultimately, it's also about us Nigerians not holding our government accountable for the things that have gone on for a very long time in our country.
Which is some of the same issues we have here in the States. In closing, as we wrap this special report up, I'm so glad that you was here with us. Two things. One, how did you feel when at the event at the Nigerian embassy that the officials didn't address the audience, but they did come out to speak to you?
Correct.
So if you can share with our audience what was said, if you can, and two, what did you think about Michelle Obama supporting this campaign with her photo op with the hashtag?
Well, I'll start with Michelle Obama first. It's always great if we can bring visibility to the issue. They do have daughters. And so I think on some level there's some empathy there. And so I'll just leave it there. To the issue of the embassy officials that came out and spoke with me, they really didn't have an answer at that point. They were still telling me that, there was a committee that had been set up to help figure out what they were going to do about bringing the girls back. And I pretty much asked them if they had children. They said yes. I asked if they had daughters. And two of them said yes. And then I asked them, how would you feel as a parent if your child was kidnapped in the middle of the night, probably being sold off as a slave or being trafficked out of your country, and you were told that there was a committee being set up over 2 weeks later to find your daughter? And they had no response.
None.
But I could see that they probably empathize, but their hands are tied.
Well, as an activist radio station, we want to leave it with the last words. What would you like people to do, and how can they be involved with this campaign, and how can we move this issue forward?
Sure. I think, one, we have to make sure that the story doesn't die. We're already seeing that the news cycle is changing. Two, I encourage everyone who's listening, if you are in the D.C. area, join us on Wednesday, May 14th at the Nigerian Embassy. That's 3519 International Court from 10:30 a.m. till 1 p.m. We're asking everyone to wear red to stand in solidarity with the parents of these kids. Wherever you're located, organize, rally. If you're close to another Nigerian embassy or consulate, visit them, say hello. Visit www.act4accountability.com. We've created a toolkit that you can use to help organize yourself. We have signs, we have a list of the demands, and we're asking you to organize like-minded people to show that these girls matter. All girls matter, and you cannot kidnap our girls, regardless of where they are in the world, and think it's okay and we'll sit idly by. That enough is enough. So I ask everyone to go to www.act4accountability.com, visit the toolkit, visit the website for updates on the rally and anything else going on that we are posting up there. But and also just really organize yourselves. This is just something I did, and it's not that hard because I think we're all around a human rights issue, which is why people are passionate and people are interested.
That's what it is. So this has been We Act Radio, a special report on Bring Back Our Girls. The Nigerian crisis is taking place right now where hundreds of girls have been kidnapped. We don't know if it's child slaves, sex slaves, forced marriages, or what have you. It's a human rights issue, as you spoke.
There's no such thing as a forced marriage. Marriage is about consent.
Thank you. That is an oxymoron, isn't it? All right. Again, so we want to thank our guests here on Omolola.
Yes, Omolola.
Adelaide. Osho.
Correct.
I'm Kimon Freeman, joined by my co-host.
Melissa Byrne, and we'll be back to do more on this topic. So
We Act Radio. Do something.